Very big news from the jury instructions out of that courtroom moments ago. Brett Tolman is joining us now, former federal prosecutor and a former U.S. attorney for Utah. Thank you so much, Brett, for joining us. You've been listening. There's now a dispute, we're told, about the legitimate press function. The judge is offering to strike legitimate press function, saying it's a broad concept. The defense agrees. The prosecution says this is confusing. Beauvais says it's an extremely broad concept. The judge says better off staying away from any facts that are too close to facts of this case. Some of these exchanges are, for all of us, are difficult to follow without the full context. But your reaction to what we've learned so far in just the last 20 minutes or so?
Sandra, jury instructions are important, but I'll tell you, you win or lose your trial well before the jury instructions conference and the settlement on the law. You have, when I was a brand new prosecutor, my first dozen cases or so, I scrutinized the jury instructions as though my life depended on it. Later, I learned better. What you needed was an incredible presentation of evidence. Your witnesses needed to be trusted. You also had to be able to deflect what the defense theory might be. And if you didn't accomplish that, you were going to lose no matter what those jury instructions said.
So let's come back to this instruction that Judge Merchan said he's reserving judgment on, but would be inclined to include it in the jury instructions. And that is the phrase, this is what the defense wanted in. If the payment had been made in the absence of the candidacy, payment should not be treated as a contribution. Basically suggesting that even if he wasn't a candidate for president, Trump probably would have paid for Stormy Daniels' silence with an NDA. Carrie Kupek says here, and she notes, it's interesting how much the prosecution wants the judge not to include that phrase. Bill was on with us just a second ago, Bill Brennan, and he says that's huge. What do you think?
Well, the prosecution does not want it because Cohen has already given testimony that he did this and that this was something that was done even outside of the election. So case closed. If, with a couple of lawyers on the jury and they're looking at that and they see that if there's that payment would have been made regardless of the timing or the scope or the whether the election was being held or not, then yeah, legally your case is in tatters. But prior to that, I would say that even before the jury gets to that, you cannot articulate what the underlying crime is. You cannot articulate what evidence Cohen was presenting that satisfied the burden, the heavy burden that's on the prosecution. Stormy Daniels is largely irrelevant. And then you have Costello, who came in and shot down the last semblance of life support that Michael Cohen was on.
All right, Brett. So we're waiting on an update now. Obviously, Jonathan Turley is inside of the courtroom. He says he's inside the courtroom for the hearing. The Trump counsel is arguing on the elements demanded by the indictment, including predicate offense elements. This is just we're taking our viewers through anything that we can possibly relay out of the courtroom. How long do you think this is going to take here, Brett? And when will we know something for sure?
Yeah, I think these tend to be tedious and go as long as the judge has the patience to endure it. So I would imagine they're gonna try to wrap up as much as they can. There may be additional issues that they'll have to fight over. Remember, we're not going to see closing arguments for some time, and then the jury, we expect to get it later. So there's plenty of time for them to work out all of these details. But it's very critical for the appeal. That's what most of this is all about, is what does the jury get told by the judge the law is, and then they go and then they get the case, and they're going to look at it, and they're going to see all of this really has more to do with what happens on appeal.
Right, but the fact that you're looking at an appeal here, that would be probably months, if not years down the road. And if Trump were convicted in this, it gives Biden the opportunity to say he's a convicted felon in their first debate and then call him that all the way through the election. So obviously what happens, I think, with the jury is very, very important. Brett, thank you so much as always. We really appreciate you being with us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brett.
All right.